Hey guys, it's Evelyn. Welcome back to my channel. Sorry it's been a while, but today in this video I'm going to show you how I created this 3D room. Alright, so let's get started. Go to this website called sketchfab, and here you can find any 3D model that you want. Here I found this room for free and free for download, and I really liked it, so you're going to press download 3D model and press original format download. And it'll download as a zip file. You can open that zip file and open it in Blender, which is a free 3D program. Once it opens, you press general, then delete that cube, then press file, import, and import FBX because that was the file format of our original source. Then import it from your folder. And then here I just scale it up. You don't have to do this, but I just wanted to show you guys what the model looked like once I imported it. Then you want to export it as an OBJ. In After Effects, create a new solid and apply the effect element onto the solid. Once you're done with that, press Scene Setup, Import, and import the OBJ. You can just look it up. Here I named it Kate Room. And press Normalize Size. I won't go into the basic of Element 3D and how to navigate it because this is not the video for it, but I'll link a bunch of tutorials down below for you to watch. So basically you want to apply the textures that you downloaded from this 3D room. So you want to press Diffuse, Load Texture, and then go to the Textures folder and look at all the textures in that folder and see which one matches which scene material. Sometimes the textures will automatically apply to the scene materials, but in this case it did not, so I had to manually put in all of these. Sometimes it's tedious, but oftentimes that's the only way you can do this. I turned all the glossiness down to 0, and then next thing I did was I went back to the website just to get a reference for what textures were applied to what, because it wasn't giving me any hints as to which texture was applied to which scene material. You gotta guess sometimes. Once you're finished applying all the textures, you want to create a camera which will help you navigate this 3D scene and areas. So on the top 3 there's zoom in, then there's like move side, move up, down, which is the second one that I'm using, and then the third one is just rotating. You can just rotate wherever you need to. And then the next thing that I did was I created a light layer, which just gave me some ambient light because I wanted it to be a little like purple and dark and cool. Next, you want to create a null object and make that 3D. Select the 3D layer and motion blur and then connect that to the camera, which I accidentally connected to the light, but ignore that. So I already prepared some clips that I was going to use for this video. Inside I just like rotoscoped some videos of Kate Bishop and applied Twixtor, and here are my rotobrush settings. You can look up a different tutorial on how to rotobrush if you don't know how to do that. The tricky part, the first thing that you do is you want to get the anchor point all the way down to the bottom. That way they're anchored by their feet and not their waist. Then make it 3D and apply motion blur to it. Go to the solid layer where it has element, then bring down utilities and press or select 2D position and place it where you want your video to be, then generate 3D null, and then copy the position null by Command C, and then turning my layer back on, I'm going to paste that position for my video layer and scale it down. To make sure that it doesn't have this weird shadowy figure because you applied a light layer, just turn off accept light. Now I'm just orienting and fixing the video layer just so that it looks better from my point of view on the camera angle. Make sure when you're adjusting the video layer, you only alter the position using the anchor point, not the position itself, because altering the position will change and affect the video layer from where we just placed it using our element generate 2D position thing. It's a whole thing. You don't want to touch it, just leave it alone. Going back to the null that we created earlier, I'm going to key all the position, scale, and orientation, and I'm going to drag that further along on the timeline, and then I'm going to start altering those exact keyframes in the beginning, and I'm just going to scale, position, orient my camera however I want it to start. Once I was satisfied with how they looked, I eased these keyframes, and then I graphed it to be more of a loose graph, but to hit where the beat of the song hit. You can't hear the song, I didn't record the sound, but there's a beat drop where the graph kind of goes up more, so that's kind of how you do this. You can go back and alter these keyframes or adjust the graph to whatever you want and extend it, shorten it, whatever. Like, just do whatever you think looks good for your edit. So to create a smooth camera motion, we want to duplicate our null layer, delete the keyframes from our copy and pasted null layer, and then keyframe those positions kind of in between our first null layers keyframes so that they kind of overlap in motion. And then you can start on altering like the second position of your second video, which I'll show you in a second. So I kind of adjusted my keyframes, and then I did the exact same thing that we did with our first video. I had to orient it a little bit differently just because now I'm kind of facing a different direction, but that's pretty much the only difference. So I don't show it in this video, but you basically repeat the same process, only I actually ended up deleting the Y rotation and the Z rotation keyframes and only ended up using the X, orientation, scale, and position. After I graphed it and I fixed all the positioning and whatever, here's what it looked like. I also added a third video clip in the end, same process, just different place. But you can tell that there's an issue. So from our perspective, these video clips should be behind certain parts of the room, like the railing. That third clip should be behind the railing, not in front of it. To fix this, duplicate your element layer and then place it above the intended clip you want it to be in front of, and then go to output and select world position. This is going to make everything black and white. So what you want to do is go to active camera, custom 1 or custom 3. This just gives you kind of like an angled third world perspective of it. You want to turn down the matte feathering and then start altering the X rotation, Y rotation, and position Z matte so that whatever is white is going to be in front of your video layer. So essentially, since I want the railing and the chair to be in front, I will make sure that the railing is covered in white. Once you're satisfied, you can return to active camera, and the next thing you're going to do is press toggle switches if you're not in the right mode, and press Luma invert matte, the top solid layer. And what will happen is now she is like kind of behind all the white parts that you selected. Mind you, I had to fix the anchor point to make it look less like she was in the table, but anyway, I did that for the third clip. You don't need to see that again. And the next thing I'm going to do is going to find an environment to put in for kind of like outside the window and just the lighting overall. So what I went to is polyhaven.com. This has a bunch of HDRIs, kind of free images for you to use. So I just went to nighttime and I just selected one that I thought would look good outside the window of the room. You don't have to do this, but since mine had windows, I just thought, why not? And so I imported that into Element 3D. I altered the environment first by pressing the kind of white box, and then going to my downloads, I selected that image that we just downloaded, and you can see a huge change in the difference in environment. It's darker, it's dimmer, it matches whatever image you just put out. Next, you want to create a sphere, and this is going to be your background, so just put in a bunch of zeros for the scale to make it as big as possible. Drop down that little arrow next to the sphere model, and then select draw back faces. This will enable the environment to be seen within the sphere, and turn down the glossiness so that it doesn't affect your image when you put it on. Click diffuse, load the texture that we just put in, and ta-da, now it is all around us. Because we imported the environment photo, now the lighting seems different once we come out of Element. So this is personal preference, but I turned off the ambient light because I found that it looked cooler when it was off. I also originally wanted to keep a 3D stars layer, but I found that it just didn't look that great with this edit. Just to make it a little more interesting, I decided to add some lyrics, 3D text basically, to the edit. I changed the color, making it purple because that's kind of like Kate Bishop's sort of theme, and this is the kind of thing that's going on. Then I went to layer styles, dropped shadow, and then I went to layer styles again, and then I selected outer glow. Then I altered outer glow to make the color a little bit more purple, and then I also increased the size so that it would kind of spread out a little bit more. Then the same process of how we use those video clips and turn them into 3D applies to this. You turn off the lights and you select 3D and motion blur, and then you move around the anchor point. To have an easier time with the position, I just copy and pasted the closest video clip and then just pasted that position to the text itself. I then added my own turbulent displace effect preset to the text layer, and I also added fade up words, which is a preset After Effects gives you. I had to move one of the text layers underneath one of the video layers just so it could be behind it. That's just something to keep in mind if you want to do that. Then I added my wave warp settings to all the text layers as well. So this is what it ended up looking like with all the effects placed on. I basically repeated the same thing I did for the first text for the other texts. I apply the position that was from the video clip closest to it, and then I just altered some of the anchor points and the orientation, and then voila, here's the final product. After the text was done, then I decided to pre-compose all these clips together and add my own sort of shakes and my coloring and all my presets that I do before I export an edit. After adding all my presets, including some fading in and fading out opacity keyframes, here is how it looked, basically. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comment section. I'll try and answer them for you. I will also link some tutorials I found helpful for learning how to use Element 3D in the description box below. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.